Hello, Fairbanks. It's Karen Gaborik, Superintendent for the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District, and happy to be here for another Facebook Live, not long after the one we just had on budget. So, yeah, it's a good time, but we are not going to talk about budget today. We're going to talk about some really great programs that we have going on in our district. The topics for today are PEAKS testing, the BP Teachers of Excellence, which is always a wonderful program. We have a big MVP event coming up, and then also April is the month of the military child. So I have with me today Lori Beam from our Teaching and Learning Department. So thank you, Lori, for being here.
Thank you.
She is going to talk about PEAKS. So why don't you just start off for people who might not know what PEAKS is. What is PEAKS?
PEAKS is our annual assessment that the state has us give out, and it goes along with English, math, and science. And grades 3 through 9 take the English language and math, and 4, 8, and 10 take science. So this year I'm glad because our high schools seem to be handling things very well. They're testing this week. They only have 3 days of testing, so they're really happy about that.
Oh,
Next week,
okay.
Our elementaries start, and they are, right now everything is going really well. We have not had any issues technology-wise. It's been, knock on wood, everything's been going very well.
Right. So when you talk about no technology issues, talk about how the PEAKS test is given, because we shifted. We used to do paper pencil tests,
Right.
and maybe
all the bubbling in.
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
people remember taking those spring tests. So how do we do PEAKS now?
So right now they are using Chromebooks. The students log into the DRC website, which is who provides our testing for us, and as soon as they log in, they have their own personal password, they have their own username, and they go straight to town. We set up testing sessions for them, so one day they'll do English, the next day they'll do math, and for those kids who are doing science, then that day they'll do science.
Yeah, so it's so nice. When we first started this, of course, you're always worried about bandwidth and connectivity, and enough Wi-Fi access points in buildings. So we've really gotten past those.
We have gotten so far past those. Last year and the year before, we had some issues here and there with low bandwidth tests cutting out. We have had none of those.
Nice.
Our upgrades are really coming through for us.
And so that means, so again, having been a principal during paper testing time, boxes and boxes and boxes of tests, right? And then going through all the paper. I mean, it took a mountain of materials and a mountain of people to get that work done, and so much more streamlined. The interesting thing is too is that as we've purchased devices in the district, and we are closer and closer to every single student having access to a device, which is awesome. But during testing time, that's critical, right? Because I mean, our whole district, even though we phase it, we have lots of kids on any given day doing tests, right? Yeah. Okay, so what's the purpose? I mean, why do we do PEAKS in Alaska? I mean, what kind of data does it give us?
It gives us, over time, after our students take it, we'll have an informed idea of where our schools are, where our students are, and we can make decisions on if this school has some lower performing students, what can we do, what services can we provide, professional development, what can the state do to give us those students a better jump ahead.
So it really is an accountability measure for the state. It is, so we do have an accountability system in the state, and the way that is addressed is through spring testing every year at these grade levels. So then, one of the goals for Alaska, and you've heard Governor Dunleavy talk about this is an ongoing goal, is that we want every student to be on reading level by grade 3. So something like PEAKS helps us assess that.
Correct.
Right? So, and is third grade the first time that
third grade is the first time
that kids are taking this test? So yeah, interesting. And then, so talk to me about how do we use this data in Fairbanks? Because one thing that is so important is that if we're going to do these tests, it has to be useful to educators, right? It has to be useful to teachers. It has to be useful to teaching and learning, like where do we need training? Principals need to be able to look at their school. Right. So, how do we use this data?
Where our students are performing low, those teachers or those principals can look at this group of students. So when after they get their third grade scores, they can look at those incoming now fourth graders and say, I need to really work in this area. The tests are broken down into categories to say, is it comprehension? Is it whatever it is that they need? If it's math, is it computation or math?
So there's so much that makes up reading. Right? So there's fluency, there's comprehension, so you can really sort of dig into where does the student need help, and then if we need to target intervention, we can get at that.
Right, and that's where we use our other testing, the MAPS and Ames Web for those other students who we can dig in a little bit deeper.
And we do that 3 times a year, so then we can make sure that students are growing. So we know where they're at the end of the year in the spring, and then when we start again in the next year, we try to target instruction, and then we use the MAP test to make sure that growth is happening.
Right.
So, and then teaching and learning, what do you guys do? How do you provide support to teachers?
We go out and we do some training. We do a lot of professional development with those teachers, with the schools. We bring them in at different times of the year, depending on what their needs are. And we really go after what the needs of the teachers are, what the needs of the school is. The principal will communicate with us what their needs are. Yeah. But we look at those test scores also to say, we might be able to do such and such at this school and something different at another school.
And what I loved about it, again, as a principal, you can say, oh my gosh, 3rd grade reading, or 5th grade math, like something, we got to work on something here. And it could be, it could be a group of kids, or it could be, maybe we need to make an adjustment with materials, and then if you get a new teacher coming in, right, you can support a brand new teacher and help them. So now it's a big testing window. So talk about how that works.
It is a big testing window, and last week we started with middle school. This week it's high school. Next week it is elementary, and then we have makeups all throughout that time. So we have plenty of time to get students in who might be out because they're sick or might be off doing something. Maybe they came back late from spring break. But we have a lot of time that we can get all of our students in for testing.
Yeah, and now attendance is really important. So one of the accountability measures with the state is that we have to meet a certain percentage, right? We have to meet a threshold of students that take this test. So talk about that a little bit, because I know your office gets calls sometimes, like people wondering about.
We do.
Yeah.
We have to meet 95%.
That's high.
Overall.
95% of our students have
and
to
95% in each subgroup.
Yeah.
So we do all we can to encourage schools to have meetings with their parents, do what they can, send notices home saying during this time is when we are testing, so please don't schedule any appointments. If your student has a cold and they can still come in and test, send them in to test, but do whatever they can to get their
or if
students
they're
in.
sick, they can come in and do the makeup.
Yep.
And here's where it's important. So it might feel like system-wide, if my kid doesn't take the test, not a big deal. But when the schools get their reports back, then it reflects on the school, right? And so.
Correct.
So then, again, we give the data, the state gives us the data, we give the data back to principals, and if there's issues with the results, then the school's got to grapple with those issues and try to figure out how to adjust. So not only do we want kids to come so we get an accurate measure, right, of where schools are at, but also we want students to give it their best shot and to be ready when they come and take the test. Because here's the other thing, when people come to Fairbanks, and we have lots of military families, they look at our schools, they look at test scores, they look at things like that, right? Like people really care about how their schools are performing, and it makes a difference about in terms of what neighborhood they want to live in.
That's exactly right.
And one of the things that's easy to find is those test scores. So,
right, and they do look at neighborhoods. When I was down in teaching
you
and learning,
that, yeah.
and with student information systems, parents will call and they'll ask, this is the school that I saw online that they have everything going on, their test scores were high. Where can I live? What area can I live in to be at that particular school?
Yeah. And then it also, if we have, if we have a particular area that's struggling at grade level, we try to provide extra support. So it might be extra tutors to the school, teaching and learning, extra training for teachers. And so to be sure that if there's a particular area that needs attention, this helps us focus that attention.
Right.
So what can families do during testing time?
Make sure your student, the day before your testing, make sure your student has a good meal in the morning. They have a good breakfast. They get plenty of sleep. Have some positive conversation about testing. Make sure they're not anxious and have a lot of anxiety about it. Some of our younger ones, really, the word test brings up a lot of emotion. So if parents can sit down and have a good talk with them, that would be really helpful.
And we've had teachers, especially with the younger elementary grades, right? They do practice runs, right? There's opportunities for kids to do practice runs.
There are. And parents can go online on the state website for education and look themselves so they can see, this is the kind of test my student is getting. These are some sample questions.
They can see all the
questions. They have some time that they can practice. There's no special passwords or usernames that they need for that.
Any parent can do that. Yeah, that's terrific. So, is there anything else with peaks that you want to talk about? That
I think we've covered it.
Have we covered everything?
Yeah, I have right now. I did find out today we have 14 schools that are testing. So
okay.
again, all of our elementary schools are next week. good luck at elementary schools.
Yeah.
I'm sure you won't need it, but.
Yeah, it'll be good. And I know that those principals are getting ready right now and,
Mhm.
and making sure all their technology is in place and ready to go. And just a huge, shout out, and it's to all the staff at our schools, because it's teachers, of course, that are very involved in testing, but often all the other staff are involved in helping. They give teachers breaks, they help organize things, they help move technology to, devices to where they need to go, they help just with the scheduling.
That's correct.
They
I
help
even,
work with parents.
on my way up in the elevator, up just right now, one of our support technicians downstairs was just out at one of the elementary schools, double checking devices to make sure they're all up and working for next week.
And so I'll just say this, I've been pretty vocal about how I feel about testing because it needs to be useful to educators. This is one test that at the end of the year, it's something that schools and educators can use. It's something, and community, right? Our community can use this, to help us, to see where we're at, to be sure, again, there is a place for accountability in our system. This is something that we can use for accountability. And then when we wrap that other type of growth monitoring, right, through MAP, where we can measure students' growth throughout the year. When you put those two things together, that's a pretty strong and useful assessment system.
Very useful, yes.
Yes. So I just want to be clear. There is some assessment that I think is useful and helpful. And I think as a state we are continually evolving, right? And when we know, there's new types of assessment coming. Superintendents have been talking about this, and those conversations are all about, look, we want something that's going to be useful for teachers, useful for schools, and informative to the community. The community, they deserve to know how well our schools are doing, how well our kids are doing, and so that meets both those needs. So, well, thanks for all your work and all your help and support. And thanks for coming today. So
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Good luck, everybody.
Slide out. Yep. Perfect. Okay. So I want to talk about one of my favorite times of year is BP Teachers of Excellence. And so one of my favorite days of the year is when I get to go around to schools with John Ringstad with BP. And we've been doing this now, John and I, for this is our 5th year, right? Doing this with John for 5 years since I've been superintendent. And we have the list of teachers who have won. And so let me tell you, so a teacher becomes a BP Teacher of Excellence, they're nominated. So it's not something that people apply for, right? So they're nominated. It could be students, it could be parents, it could be their administrator. All kinds of, so lots of packets have multiple nominations. There's a big committee that gets together that involves teachers, and it involves assistant superintendents, BPs involved, and so they choose, who the BP Teachers of the Year or Teachers of Excellence will be. And then they give me the list, and actually Charisse goes with me too, and we get to go around to the schools, and we love to surprise people. And it's just such a nice moment, right? So they don't know we're coming, and we go and we let them know that, hey, you have been selected as a BP Teacher of Excellence, and the reactions are priceless. And sometimes people are with kids, and sometimes they're not. We caught one teacher yesterday who had just she had just delivered her students to a special. But what's also really interesting is the principals are also so proud, right? We were talking about that. The principals are just like, oh, yay! And especially if they were part of the nomination process, and then if other staff were there. So we have this great moment where we surprise the teacher and we say, you've been, selected as a Teacher of Excellence, and then we encourage the schools after that to celebrate, in their school community, their teachers. And then this year, there's always a wonderful celebration that BP sponsors, and this year it'll be on April 30th. We bring all those teachers in, and their spouses, and their principals, and past teachers who have won are there, and of course lots of support staff, and it's just this really wonderful event to acknowledge these Teachers of Excellence. And anyway, huge thanks to BP for all, and they do this across Alaska, right? It's this, across Alaska this time of year we are recognizing Teachers of Excellence, so it's a wonderful thing. So we made our visits yesterday. We have one more visit to do, so I can announce who 4 of the teachers are, and then we've got one more to do. So huge congratulations to Jeanette Fortune at Ladd Elementary. And so I've been in Jeanette's classroom. I've gone to Ladd. They've had some great parent nights. She's had students doing wonderful presentations of projects that they've done. And so I've been able to see Jeanette in action. I've been in some meetings with Jeanette, like staff meetings and other team meetings, and she is just a ball of energy and just a wonderful teacher. So happy for Jeanette. Tanya Mendelowitz at North Pole Elementary, and so I had a chance to meet Tanya a few years ago, and I actually was in her classroom at Hunter when she was teaching kindergarten, and I was just, it's hard not to be blown away by a kindergarten teacher, right? I mean, they're just amazing. And so she has, since she was moved through some staffing changes, she got moved to North Pole Elementary, and she said she never would have necessarily picked that school because of the commute, but she loves it and she's having a wonderful time out there. And so, yeah, so excited for Tanya. We have Rebecca Missler at North Pole High School. I personally didn't know Rebecca, and I think we've met a couple times, but I have not been in her classroom, but it was wonderful, the nominations for her. And so it sounds like, the school community just loves and appreciates Rebecca. And actually, as we were kind of standing outside her classroom, I was looking at some of the projects her kids had done, and they were just wonderful. It was really, really great work. And so, so congratulations to Rebecca. And then also Rebecca Zaverl at Denali Elementary, and I was just in Rebecca's classroom it's been about a month ago, so on the 100th day, she's a kindergarten teacher, and so I just happened to be there on the 100th day, and she had this wonderful activity going where kids were using, in her room it was all kinds of snacks, right? So there were actually really great snacks. It was such a genius idea. And they were counting by tens up to 100, and the kids were so engaged, and she had lots of different groups going and lots of different things, and it was just a master teacher at work. It was really a great event, so a really great visit for me. So congratulations to those teachers, and we have one more to go, and we're thinking we might do the last one Facebook Live, huh? I'm excited about that. So yeah, we'll be Facebook Live on the road for our final BP Teacher of Excellence. So I hope that all of you who know, if you know one or more of these teachers, celebrate with them, celebrate with their school communities, say all the wonderful things that you know about these teachers, and really just help extend our appreciation and thanks, and so that they just feel just all of the love of our community and appreciation for the work that they do every day with all of our kids. So, and again, thank you, BP. So wonderful that you guys do this. So we've talked about peaks and the BP Teacher of Excellence. I want to talk about, we call it our MVP event, which is kind of fun. It's our Mentor Volunteer Partner Appreciation Breakfast. So that's coming up next Friday, April 12th, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. at Ryan Middle School. So you can visit our Facebook page and get information about this. And can anybody come to that? I think it's open, right? Yeah, and so that the Ryan multi-purpose room is a huge room, so there's lots of space for people if they'd like to come. And so myself and the Bright Futures team will be there to celebrate specifically people who've partnered with the school district, whether they've been mentors, whether they've been volunteers, business partners. We've got a whole group of people that we want to celebrate, and so we try to do a nice breakfast with them, and then we have some certificates that we give out, and just have an opportunity to highlight, what their partnerships have meant to their schools or to the district if it's, sort of a large partnership. We usually have the principals there of the schools, so they'll be there to celebrate with them. So we just try to appreciate, you can't do this job of public education alone. It really does take an entire community to take care of our kids, and the Fairbanks community is wonderful when it comes to partnering with a school district. And there's so many different ways that agencies and people, the churches, there's just so many different ways that people connect with the school district and partner with us to help support kids. So we'll highlight some of that this Friday. Bring a friend. So, if you'd like to come and you can RSVP, that would be great, because we're going to have bagels and coffee, I think, right? So we want to make sure we have enough food for everybody. If you'd like to bring a friend, do that. And then also, it's a great opportunity to reach out and solicit volunteers, engage other partners, because last year I was listening to one of our partners talk about how meaningful it was, and I think they were delivering backpacks to schools, right? And so the Bone Builder backpacks that kids, and if kids need it, it has food and supplies, and if the kids need it, they can come and grab it and take it home, sometimes in the evening and a lot of times on the weekend. And that person was just so touched about the difference they were making in the lives of kids who just didn't have enough to eat at home. And now I'm getting emotional, right? I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to do that too, right? And there were people in the room who were like, wait, that's something, that's something simple that I can help with. And there's structures in place through Bright Futures to help. So we've got the structure to do those things, then you can just jump in and be a part of it and help. We have people who just help with delivery. We have people who help stuff the backpacks. I mean, there's just all kinds of ways people can help. So thank you again to all of our partners. And so we will highlight you on Friday, April 12th, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. at Ryan Middle School. So, okay, and then the last thing that we're going to talk about today is April is the month of the military child. And so this is a big month for Fairbanks. We serve 26%, so let me say that again, 26% of our student population across the district is military connected. And so that could be, you could be a student in an active military family. You could have somebody who's working civil service. We've got lots of military connected types of families. We have the Air Guard. We have lots of military connected families in our community. Of course, many of them live in the North Pole area and close to Fort Wainwright, but they live all over town. And so we've got military connected families in every single one of our schools. And then also what's great about our school board is that we have 2 advisory board members. One is from Fort Wainwright, Colonel Fisher, and then one is from Eielson Air Force Base, Colonel Bondurant. And then we have the Department of Defense has been amazingly supportive of us with their grants. So we have multiple grants through the Department of Defense. Some of it has helped with technology. Some of it has helped with training for teachers. Some of it, directly works with getting kindergartners prepared. I mean, there's so many things I can't even list all of the supports that these Department of Defense grants have provided for schools that have military connected kids. So April, the month of the military child is sponsored by the Department of Defense, Military Community and Family Policy, and it's a time, and they, of course, the entire military community will be celebrating their families and their children, and especially, families. We have a huge deployment coming, right? I mean, I was just reading about that. It was in the newspaper, a huge deployment coming, and so it's all of, it's the sacrifices that families make so that the soldiers and the airmen can go and engage in other areas and be involved in other areas, sometimes in the country or in the world. And so, then we take our job very seriously of supporting those families and those kids while the soldiers or the airmen are gone. So in kindergarten, from kindergarten through 6th grade, so elementary and secondary, so about 9 of our schools have most of our military population. So like I said, but we have military kids all over the district, and in the United States there are over 935,000 military connected students. So our school district is a member of the Military Child Education Coalition, and so that's been a great organization to be involved with. And one of the things, my personal involvement when I was at Lathrop was helping kids who transfer high schools. So that is such a challenging sort of space to negotiate when kids are trying to take credits from one school from one state to another state. So we have compacts in place that help kids so that they don't lose credit, and so that some credits that may have counted in Alaska don't necessarily count in Georgia, but the states work with each other to make sure that they do, and vice versa. So throughout the month, schools are encouraged to plan special events to honor our military children and to incorporate these themes into things that are going on across the community, and they will stress the importance of providing children with quality services and support them to help succeed in the mobile military lifestyle. And so one of the favorite days of the month is, and this day it's April 12th, they call it Purple Up Day. So we hope that everybody will wear purple and to show support and thank our military youth for their strength and their resilience, and celebrate all of our military children and families. So April 12th, which is a Friday, is Purple Up Day. So that'll be fun. I've got it marked on my calendar, and I have lots of purple. I like purple, so that's an easy one for me. So we hope to see everybody dressed in purple on April 12th. So, okay, well, we have talked about peaks. We've talked about BP Teachers of Excellence, all just wonderful educators. We've talked about our MVP event that's coming up to celebrate our many community partners, and then also April being the month of the military child, and Purple Up Day on April 12th. So thanks, you guys. It was nice to not talk about money, right? It's not, and so we're in budget times and legislation. It's nice to talk about all these other amazing things that we're doing. And so, so thank you. And we'll have another Facebook Live in a couple weeks. And actually, that'll be timely, just in terms of, again, we're watching the legislature, seeing how things are progressing. except it's freezing right now, right? But I love that a couple days ago it was warm, and it looks like the warm weather's coming back. Going to be such a great spring. We've got spring sports starting, and so kids, because the snow hasn't been an issue, I think we're going to have lots of kids, out and about. Maybe having a better time with spring sports this year than we've had in past years, where we've had lots of snow. So the fields are getting plowed and the tracks are getting cleared, and so this is a fun time of the school year, a really fun time. So hope you all have a great week. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in a few weeks to give some more updates, more school district updates, and probably get back to the money conversation, and we'll let folks know what it's looking like with the legislature and what budget is looking like. So thanks, and have a great week.